The night my husband told me to apologize to his mother in front of everyone, or leave our home forever, I smiled, stood up from the dinner table, and quietly asked a question that ended 3 generations of lies. Before I answer, I said, "Does anyone here know why the FBI has been asking about Blackwood development?" The room froze. Even the grandfather clock in the hallway seemed louder than anyone's breathing. My mother-in-law's wine glass trembled in her hand. My husband looked at me as if I had completely lost my mind. I hadn't. My name is Emma Lawson. I was 37 years old when my marriage ended inside a beautiful brick house in Maple Ridge, one of those quiet suburban neighborhoods outside Charlotte, North Carolina, where every lawn looked perfect and every family pretended nothing ugly ever happened behind closed doors. The evening had started as a celebration of my father-in-law's retirement. It ended with federal agents waiting outside the front gate. But to understand why I spoke that sentence, you first need to understand what it feels like to spend 7 years becoming invisible inside your own marriage. I worked as a senior forensic accountant for a national financial compliance firm. Every day I traced missing money through thousands of transactions. Fraud always left fingerprints. People simply didn't know where to look. At work, executives trusted my judgment. Government auditors requested my reports. Banks hired my team when millions of dollars disappeared without explanation. At home, I was simply Ryan's quiet wife. When Ryan and I first met, he loved telling people how smart I was. He asked questions about my investigations. He said watching me solve financial puzzles was fascinating. Somewhere between our wedding and our 7th anniversary, admiration slowly became discomfort. Instead of introducing me as a forensic accountant, Ryan would laugh and say, "Emma just works with spreadsheets." His family preferred flash over substance. Especially his older brother, Derek Lawson. Derek was everything the neighborhood admired. Luxury SUV, designer watches, country club membership, endless business deals. He called himself a real estate visionary. Every few months he announced another luxury housing project. Every few months construction was about to begin. Oddly enough, nothing was ever built. No one questioned it. Whenever I earned recognition at work, Derek somehow arrived with a bigger story. When I received an award from the National Association of Fraud Examiners, Derek bought a boat. When I led an investigation that recovered nearly $12 million, Derek announced a new investment partnership. Whenever my success couldn't be parked in the driveway, it didn't count. The moment I truly understood my place happened during a 4th of July barbecue. Derek had spent 20 minutes bragging about a luxury resort he claimed would transform the county. When the burgers began burning, he handed me the spatula. "Emma," he laughed loudly enough for everyone to hear, "you're good with boring jobs." Everyone smiled politely. I walked to the grill. Then Derek pointed toward the old silver watch on my wrist. "My grandfather wore watches like that." "It belonged to my mother," I answered. He grinned. "Sentimental doesn't increase market value." Several people laughed. I looked toward Ryan. He had heard every word. For one brief second, I thought he would defend me. Instead, he gave me the same small smile he always used. The smile that meant, "Please don't make this uncomfortable." That single expression explained my entire marriage. That evening stayed with me far longer than I wanted to admit. Not because Derek had mocked me. He always did. Not because Ryan stayed silent. He always did that too. What unsettled me was how natural it had become for everyone, including me, to accept it. A week later, I received the biggest opportunity of my career. Our firm had been selected to lead a confidential forensic audit involving several large suburban development companies across North Carolina. Only 3 investigators were granted security clearance. I was one of them. The promotion meant more responsibility, a significant raise, and eventually a position as Director of Financial Investigations. I drove home smiling for the first time in weeks. Ryan was in the garage polishing his truck. "I've got some incredible news," I said. He looked up briefly. "You got promoted?" "I've been selected to lead a federal compliance investigation." He nodded. "Does it pay more?" "It does." "Good." He returned to polishing the hood. Maybe now we can finally remodel the kitchen. That was it. Not congratulations. Not, I'm proud of you. Not even curiosity about what I would actually be doing. Only money. Later that evening his mother called. Sunday dinner had been moved to Saturday because Derek wanted to introduce an important investor. The whole family will be there, Ryan said while scrolling through his phone. You should wear something nicer. I have plenty of nice clothes. He frowned. Not accountant nice. I looked at him. What exactly does that mean? He sighed. Derek's guests are wealthy. First impressions matter. So I should pretend to be someone else? I just don't want you talking about audits all night. I couldn't help smiling. I wasn't planning to. He finally looked at me. Emma, sometimes you make people uncomfortable. Those words stayed with me. The following Thursday, my investigation officially began. Boxes of financial records arrived from multiple construction companies. Most contained ordinary paperwork. One company immediately caught my attention. Blackwood Development Group. The name sounded familiar. I opened the first ledger. Nothing unusual. Second file. Routine expenses. Third. Property transfers. Then I noticed something strange. The same consulting company had received nearly $4 million over 18 months. Its address belonged to a mailbox rental service. No employees. No office. No website. Only payments. I requested additional records. 3 hours later they arrived. The money moved again. Another shell company. Then another. Finally, it disappeared into a private investment account. The account holder's last name stopped me cold. Lawson. I leaned closer to the screen. Not Ryan. Derek. My stomach tightened. Maybe it was another Lawson. There were thousands in the country. I opened the ownership records. Date of birth. Home address. Maple Ridge. It was him. For several minutes I simply stared at the monitor. There had to be an explanation. Maybe he was an investor. Maybe the payments were legitimate. Then I opened the supporting contracts. Half the signatures had been digitally copied. Several permits referenced construction sites that didn't exist. One engineering company listed in the documents had closed 5 years earlier. Every answer created 2 new questions. I closed my office door. Locked it. Then I kept digging. For the next 4 days, I barely slept. Every document I reviewed uncovered another layer of deception. Blackwood Development wasn't building luxury neighborhoods. It was building illusions. Money collected from investors was being recycled through shell companies, fake consulting firms, and non-existent construction contracts. The numbers were elegant. Almost beautiful. Someone intelligent had designed the system. But they had made one fatal mistake. They underestimated the paper trail. Every transfer created another timestamp. Every signature left metadata. Every wire payment connected another name. By Friday afternoon, I had traced nearly $28 million through 7 different companies. The money eventually returned to just 3 personal accounts. One belonged to Derek. The second belonged to his business partner. The third made my heart stop. It belonged to Harold Lawson, Ryan's father. I leaned back in my chair. The room suddenly felt too quiet. This wasn't just Derek running another dishonest business. The entire family was involved. At least, someone had to know. My supervisor, Laura Mitchell, knocked gently before entering my office. You've been in here since sunrise. I nodded. I found something bigger than we expected. She closed the door behind her. How big? I turned my monitor toward her. She didn't speak for nearly a minute. Finally, she whispered. Oh my God. What? I know this family. So do I. Her eyes slowly lifted toward mine. They're your in-laws. I nodded once. She remained silent. Then she said the words I had already been thinking. You have to remove yourself from the investigation. I know. But before I do, you need evidence strong enough that no one can accuse you of protecting them. Exactly. For the rest of the afternoon, we documented every file I had accessed. Every report. Every transaction. Everything was logged. Everything was witnessed. By 6 o'clock, the investigation officially moved to another forensic team. My involvement was over. Or at least, officially. That evening Ryan came home unusually excited. Derek closed another investment deal. I forced a smile. Really? Yeah. He wants everyone at Mom and Dad's tomorrow night. What are we celebrating this time? Ryan laughed. Success. I looked at him for several seconds. Success. If only he knew what that word meant. Before going to bed, I opened my laptop one last time. Although I was no longer assigned to the investigation, I still had copies of my own notes. One transaction kept bothering me. It wasn't large. Only $85,000. But it had been sent every December to the exact same account. Different company. Same destination. I searched the beneficiary. The account belonged to Maple Ridge Community Foundation, a local charity. Or at least, that was what everyone believed. Something told me tomorrow night's family dinner was about to become much more interesting. Saturday evening arrived with clear skies and perfect summer weather. The Lawson family home looked exactly the way it always had: immaculate flower beds, polished stone walkways, and expensive cars filling the circular driveway. Everything about the house whispered success. Now I knew it was financed by deception. Ryan adjusted his tie while we walked toward the front door. Please, he said quietly, let Derek enjoy tonight. I looked at him. I wasn't planning on ruining anyone's evening. He smiled with relief. Good. He had no idea. Inside, nearly 30 guests were already gathered. Neighbors, business partners, family friends, several local politicians. Everyone wanted to meet Derek's newest investor. The man arrived only minutes after we did. Victor Reynolds, one of the largest private real estate investors on the East Coast. He shook hands confidently, smiled for photographs, and complimented Harold on his beautiful home. I watched Derek. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked nervous. Tiny things gave him away. He kept checking his phone. His smile disappeared whenever no one was watching. He drank water instead of wine. Fear always leaked through the smallest cracks. During cocktail hour, I wandered toward the backyard. Someone stepped beside me. Emma. I turned. Laura Mitchell. My supervisor. She wasn't invited. She wore jeans instead of business clothes and carried a paper coffee cup. What are you doing here? She smiled slightly. Walking my dog. I looked down. A golden retriever happily wagged its tail. Convenient. Laura lowered her voice. The federal team reviewed your evidence. And? They obtained emergency warrants this afternoon. My pulse quickened. They're coming. She nodded once. They're waiting. For what? For confirmation. I understood immediately. The final financial transfer. The charitable foundation. The missing $85,000. If it happened tonight, the case would become undeniable. Laura gently squeezed my arm. Be careful. Then she continued walking as if we had discussed nothing more important than the weather. I stood there for several seconds before returning inside. Dinner began shortly afterward. Crystal glasses sparkled beneath the chandelier. Harold stood to welcome everyone. My family has always believed in hard work, honesty, and community. I nearly laughed. Honesty. The irony was overwhelming. When the first course was served, Derek rose from his chair. I'd like everyone to welcome Victor Reynolds. Applause filled the room. Derek raised his glass. Tonight marks the beginning of our biggest project yet. Everyone cheered. Then Harold smiled toward me. Emma. Every head turned. Ryan tells us you've been busy counting other people's money again. Soft laughter spread across the table. I smiled politely. It's been an interesting week. Derek grinned. I hope you don't spend your weekends auditing family dinners. More laughter. Ryan laughed too. I looked at him. He couldn't even meet my eyes. The laughter slowly faded. I picked up my glass of water but didn't take a sip. Instead, I looked at Derek. You know, I said calmly, this week taught me something interesting. He smiled confidently. Oh? Like what? That appearances are the most expensive investments people ever make. Several guests nodded politely, assuming I was making conversation. Derek laughed. Coming from a forensic accountant, that sounds almost philosophical. It isn't. The room became quieter. I've spent the last several days following money. Ryan shifted in his chair. Derek's smile weakened almost imperceptibly. What kind of money? The kind that disappears. Nobody spoke. Victor Reynolds slowly lowered his wine glass. Harold glanced toward Derek. My mother-in-law forced a smile. I'm sure Emma doesn't want to bore everyone with work. I won't. I folded my napkin carefully beside my plate. I only have one question. Derek leaned back. Go ahead. How many charitable foundations do you own? His eyebrows lifted. I don't. Interesting. I reached into my purse and removed a single folded sheet of paper. Because according to state records, Maple Ridge Community Foundation received the exact same donation every December for 6 consecutive years. Derek didn't answer. The donations came from 7 different companies. Still nothing. But they all ended in the same account. Ryan whispered. Emma. I ignored him. Victor Reynolds extended his hand. May I see that? I handed him the document. His expression remained neutral while he read. Then he turned the page. His eyes narrowed. This account. He murmured. Yes, it belongs to Blackwood Holdings. It does. Derek finally stood. This is ridiculous. His voice was louder than necessary. Emma has no idea how corporate philanthropy works. I met his eyes. No, he forced a smile toward the guests. Charities often receive money through holding companies. True. And holding companies sometimes own investment subsidiaries. Also true. He spread his hands confidently. So you've proved absolutely nothing. I nodded. You're right. He relaxed. I've only proved where the money arrived. Silence. What I haven't mentioned yet. I paused. Is where it went next. For the first time that evening, Derek's face lost all color. Victor slowly looked up from the papers. What do you mean? I took a slow breath. The foundation never funded scholarships. It never renovated community centers. It never sponsored local schools. Every sentence made the room quieter. The money left the foundation less than 48 hours after every donation. Victor's voice became very calm. Transferred where? I looked directly at Derek. To private offshore accounts. No one laughed anymore. Across the table, Ryan stared at me in complete disbelief. Harold slowly lowered his fork. My mother-in-law looked as though she couldn't breathe. Then Derek spoke. His voice was almost a whisper. You've been investigating me. I shook my head. No. I was investigating financial fraud. And you happened to be waiting at the end of the trail. No one spoke. The silence around the table became unbearable. Even the soft music playing through the ceiling speakers suddenly felt intrusive. Derek slowly looked around the room, searching for anyone, to support him. No one did. Victor Reynolds carefully placed the documents back onto the table. Mr. Lawson, he said quietly, is everything she presented accurate? Derek forced a laugh. Emma is twisting ordinary business transactions into a conspiracy. Victor didn't react. I didn't ask whether it sounded suspicious. He folded his hands. I asked whether it's true. Derek hesitated. Only for a second. But it was enough. Harold noticed it. So, Harold whispered, his voice shaking. Those donations. Derek immediately interrupted. Dad, don't listen to this. Answer me. The room remained frozen. Did the money leave the foundation? Derek looked away. Harold's shoulders slowly dropped. Oh, God. Ryan finally stood. This has gone far enough. He turned toward me. Emma, apologize. Every face turned toward him. You embarrassed my brother in front of everyone. I stared at him. Your brother stole money. You don't know that. I followed every transfer. You should have spoken to us first. I almost smiled. I've been trying to speak to this family for 7 years. He shook his head. No. You've always been jealous of Derek. Those words didn't hurt anymore. They simply confirmed everything I had finally accepted. Ryan didn't want the truth. He wanted comfort. He wanted peace. Even if that peace depended on lies. I slowly stood up. I have one final thing to say. No one interrupted. I reached into my handbag. Not for more documents. For my phone. I placed it quietly on the table. The screen was still active. An unread message had appeared only seconds earlier. I turned the display toward Victor. Toward Harold. Toward everyone. The sender read, Federal Financial Crimes Task Force. The message contained only one sentence. Search warrants executed. Primary suspects secured. Thank you for your cooperation. No one breathed. Derek grabbed the edge of his chair. What? His voice cracked. Did you do? I looked directly into his eyes. I didn't destroy your future. I simply stopped protecting your past. At that exact moment, someone rang the front doorbell. Once. Then again. A housekeeper hurried toward the entrance. She opened the door. Several people standing in the hallway quietly showed their identification. Dark suits. Federal badges. The room understood before anyone spoke. Victor slowly stood. I believe my evening is over. Harold covered his face with both hands. Ryan looked at me as though he no longer recognized the woman he had married. The lead agent stepped inside. Good evening. His calm voice echoed through the silent dining room. We're looking for Derek Lawson. The dining room remained perfectly silent. No one moved. No one even reached for a glass. The lead federal agent stepped inside, accompanied by 2 investigators. Mr. Derek Lawson? Derek swallowed hard. There must be some misunderstanding. The agent calmly opened a folder. We have federal warrants authorizing the seizure of financial records and your arrest on suspicion of wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy, and the misuse of charitable funds. Ryan looked from the agents to his brother. This can't be real. No one answered him. Harold slowly stood from his chair. His hands trembled. Derek. His voice broke. Tell me she was wrong. Derek looked at his father. Then at Victor Reynolds. Then at me. Finally, he lowered his eyes. I'm sorry, Dad. The words were barely audible. Harold closed his eyes. I trusted you with everything. So did I, Linda whispered, tears running down her face. The agents approached quietly. One of them asked Derek to place his hands behind his back. He didn't resist. As the handcuffs clicked shut, every illusion he had spent years creating disappeared with them. The expensive suits, the luxury cars, the business awards, the admiration. None of it mattered anymore. Victor Reynolds picked up his jacket. Before leaving, he stopped beside me. I've spent 40 years investing in companies, he said. But today, he extended his hand. I met the only honest person in this room. I shook his hand. Thank you. He nodded once and walked away. The front door closed behind him. Ryan finally turned toward me. His face was pale. You could have warned us. I looked at him quietly. I tried. For years. You never listened. He opened his mouth. No words came out. Because he knew I was right. Harold slowly walked over. For several long seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he said something I never expected to hear. I'm sorry, Emma. His eyes were filled with regret. I spent years believing the loudest person in the room. I never noticed the strongest one. I felt tears forming, but I didn't let them fall. It's not too late to start seeing people for who they really are. He nodded. No, it isn't. Outside, flashing blue lights reflected across the quiet suburban street. Neighbors stood on their porches, whispering. The perfect image of the Lawson family had disappeared forever. Ryan looked toward me one last time. Are you coming home? For the first time in 7 years. I didn't hesitate. No. I removed my wedding ring. Placed it gently on the dining table. Not with anger. Not with revenge. Simply because it no longer belonged to my future. I walked toward the front door. The warm North Carolina evening greeted me with a gentle breeze. For years I had mistaken silence for peace. I had confused endurance with love. I had believed that disappearing inside someone else's life was the price of keeping a family together. I was wrong. Sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is stop making themselves invisible. As I stepped onto the front porch, I took one deep breath. For the first time in a very long time. It felt like freedom. The end.